Time now for yet another vlog. And this comes off the Discord. By the way, Discord, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all my links to both my channels, all my social media to the Go Burns Nation, linked below in the description section. This comes from Akeem and Shotgun Mark off of Discord. First off, Akeem, I'm not a fan of guns, but I always like the look of the Golden Desert Eagle with tiger stripes. So how about a vlog about guns? Pros, cons, owning one, also regrets about having it. And then Shotgun Mark said this, vlog about guns. I'd watch it. Okay, so let's vlog about guns, shall we? All right. So this is going to be, I would say, perhaps a controversial vlog of sorts. But, you know, that's perfectly fine. I have no problem with controversy when it comes to the vlogs. I mean, there's probably a few that I've already posted in the past that some people have issue with. And that's just the way it goes with these vlogs. It's, you know, my views, opinions, thoughts regarding various ideas, thoughts. And you get the idea. But if you do have a vlog suggestion for a future episode, you can send it my way via Discord, Twitter, Facebook, or below in the YouTube section. So feel free and comment your... goodbye, Ron. Goodbye. Feel free and send your comments my way regarding vlog suggestions. Okay, so here we go. We're going to talk about guns. Now, I have owned a firearm for most of my adult life. When I was a kid, I was trained properly by my grandfather how to use a gun and, of course, gun safety. Now, that's one of the very first things I learned from my grandfather was the fact that, A, never point a gun at somebody unless it's in self-defense. That was the first thing my grandfather taught me. The second thing he taught me about guns is that treat every single gun as if it's loaded. In other words, even if I have all my guns unloaded right now, in my opinion, they're all loaded because I don't want to risk accidentally shooting somebody or accidentally shooting myself in the process. So that's why it's important to always treat your guns as if they're loaded, even when they're not loaded. Because a lot of people get hurt or killed through gun accidents. You know, discharge of a firearm when they thought that there wasn't a bullet in it. And a lot of it comes down to whenever you're cleaning your gun or you're just, you know, being an idiot and you're playing around with your gun. I don't know why people do that. If you want to goof off and pretend a gun's real, go get a plastic gun or a water gun. That way you're guaranteed not to actually, you know, hurt yourself or somebody else in the process if you want to be like, this is a stick-up, or just, if you're horse playing with somebody, don't use the real gun when you're horse playing, okay? And make sure that the other person knows that it's not a real gun, all right? I'm just going to say that right now. But under no circumstances should you ever point a gun at yourself, even if you do have some serious depression issues, suicidal thoughts. We've talked about that in my suicide prevention vlog a while back. And if you need help, please go get it. So, yeah, don't ever point a gun at yourself, whether it's accidental or intentional. Even if it is because you're trying to clean your gun, don't do that. And, of course, you know, be respectful of the fact that guns are dangerous. And that's something I really want to stress right now. Guns are extremely dangerous. And in the wrong hands, obviously, they can cause mass casualties, just like with what happened in Florida, just like with what happened months earlier in Las Vegas, and what happens in wars. You know, millions upon millions of people have been killed, you know, over the last few centuries, you know, with the advent of the gun as a military weapon. But, you know, the reality is, as I've pointed out before in my violence vlog, that you could take guns away and magically make them disappear from the face of the earth, and unfortunately humans would still find ways of you know, harming and killing each other. And we had war long before guns came along. We had, you know, axes and swords, bows and arrows and catapults and various other weapons. So yes, you know, there are a lot of violent weapons out there, and the truth is the gun is not the most dangerous weapon on the planet. Like I said last time, the nuke is probably the most dangerous, or biological weapons or chemical weapons, which can kill a whole bunch of people potentially. So there are far more dangerous weapons than guns. And even in America, statistically, more people are killed by automobiles than by firearms, believe it or not. So a lot of people, unfortunately, are killed by cars because a car is, several hundred pounds of metal, steel, plastic, going several miles down the highway or down the road, even going, say, 10 or 25 miles an hour. You hit somebody walking across the street, you may seriously injure or kill them in the process. So yeah, cars are extremely dangerous. There's a lot of that in the world, unfortunately. There's a lot of ways to be harmed or killed, not just by guns. But at the same time, unfortunately, the gun is a weapon of choice for war, and it's also a weapon of choice for people that wish to carry out massive acts of terror, which is what I consider school shootings. It's a form of terrorism. If it's lone wolf, then it still qualifies as terrorism, in my opinion, of cold-blooded murder of several innocent people, whether it's one person that you're going to kill with a gun or several dozen people. It's still murder. It's still terrorism. And once again, that's caused debate in my country on both sides. People that are pro-gun and people that are anti-gun, and everyone else in the middle. Discussing, what needs to be done to ensure safety in schools and in other places, to potentially decrease gun violence. And everyone has their opinion about it. And I'm going to give you guys my opinion. And this is from somebody that, like I said, I own firearms. I respect them as very dangerous weapons and hope that I only ever have to use it in self-defense. And I hope I never have to. I hope that I can go the rest of my life with never ever having to use a gun on another human being. I don't ever want to do that. And I'm going to say this also regarding the majority of gun owners in the United States. That's exactly how most gun owners feel. None of us want to go out there, action movie style, shooting up everybody, or all the bad guys, all Matrix-like or Rambo. Most of us just want to be able to protect ourselves and our families and loved ones from harm, from potential violent criminals or criminals in general that are, trying to break into your home. And that's where most gun owners lie. And yeah, there's also gun owners that like to go hunting, whether it's big game hunting or sport hunting, trophy hunting. And look, I'm a hunter as well, but I'm mainly just a game hunter. I hunt for food on the rare occasion I go hunting. I haven't gone hunting in years, by the way. But if I had to, yeah, I would go out hunting for deer or turkey or something if I was hungry and I needed food. Of course I would, because I'm an omnivore. Like, scientifically speaking, humans are omnivores, even though people do have choices. Some people choose to be vegetarian or vegan. That's fine. But at the same time, that's off topic. I don't like people that go out trophy hunting. I don't like it at all. I think that you're spending like tons of money going across the world to kill this potentially endangered animal that is in a safari or somewhere in Africa or another country that did nothing to you, just because you want a head on your wall, or you want a rug, or you want I don't know what you want, but I don't like trophy hunting. I only really find hunting an animal acceptable for food and for self-defense. Like if you live out in the woods or you live out in the country and there is an animal out there that's threatening you or your family, or even say your livestock or your pets. If you have dogs and you're in fear of a rattlesnake, biting your dogs or biting your children, okay, in my opinion, it's perfectly acceptable to take that rattlesnake out. Or even a coyote, if it's, a clear and present danger. Going out into the middle of the woods, away from civilization, just to shoot a wolf or to shoot a bear is just in their territory, minding their own business, just trying to survive, just like the rest of us are. Yeah, I have a problem with that. Yeah, I definitely do. So when it comes to the usage of guns, whether for self-defense or for hunting, that's pretty much where I'm aligned to. Only for like self-defense when it comes to guns, whether it's against would-be criminals that are breaking into your home or trying to break into your car, for example, that potentially could be out to do more than simply rob you. Most criminals that are trying to break into your house probably just want to get in and out as quickly as possible and just steal your stuff for whatever rhyme or reason, whatever led them to that life. I'm not saying they were born a criminal, but unfortunately, eventually it led them to the point and choices that they made where they ended up being a criminal. Ironically, me playing a video game where you are a criminal, right? But that's the fact that this is a video game and not reality. Back to reality. So I don't know what leads somebody down the path where they eventually decide that the only way they can make it is by breaking into people's cars or breaking into people's homes in order to steal their stuff. And like I said, I don't think that the majority of those that do that sort of thing, robbers, are out to harm anybody. I think they're opportunists, and they'll only break into a house or a car that they think is easy to break into or unoccupied. So, like, for example, if you're on vacation, I mean, there's a very real possibility that if you don't have anybody watching your house, yeah, I mean, it increases the chances of you being robbed if they know that nobody's home. But if somebody's home, a lot of times a robber is not going to risk it because, A, they don't want to go to jail. They don't want to be caught. And a lot of them are smart enough to realize that if they potentially harm or kill a person they're trying to rob, when you combine those crimes together, that's a capital offense in a lot of states in my country, which means they could get either life imprisonment or the death penalty. So in that case, you don't know because I'm not telepathic. I have no idea if this guy who's trying to break into my house simply just wants to steal video games from me or any of my other possessions that they want to, pawn or sell off the black market in order to make a few bucks off of. Or are they breaking into my house because they're after me specifically? Are they trying to harm me? Are they trying to harm, family members or loved ones? Or you just don't know. All you know is that somebody's trying to break into your home, and you go into defensive mode. The adrenaline kicks in, and you feel the need to protect yourself. Because the reality is, most of the time, police aren't exactly around the corner. And even if you do call 911, in my country it's 911, I think it's in the UK it's 999, but say someone's trying to bring down your door and you call 911, they may send a first responder your way, but it may take them a few minutes to get to your house. And the reality is you only probably have a few seconds to defend yourself against a would-be home invader. And that's a big reason why I am an advocate for citizens, law-abiding citizens, having the right to protect themselves and their families. I absolutely believe in that. That, in a society, in any society, the citizens should have a right to protect themselves and defend themselves. Now, I'm not saying going out and being a vigilante, just going out looking for trouble. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about simply, like, when somebody breaks into your property, whether it's your vehicle or your home, they basically have invaded your quote-unquote kingdom, your fiefdom, your country. And like with any family, there are rules within a house, under a roof. Like if most of you probably have parents or legal guardians, that. You grew up, living under their house, and you know that they had rules you had to follow. You had to do this and you had to do that. So in a way, it was like living in your own little mini kingdom. And that's how I feel about my house. My house is my own kingdom. And anyone that is entering my house illegally without my express written consent or without a warrant, I feel like that's an invasion. It's a quote-unquote act of war. And I feel like I have no choice but to protect myself. And that's how most gun owners feel. And that's how I feel about guns. I mean, I honestly wish that we didn't have to have guns. I wish we didn't have to have any of these violent weapons that harm and kill each other. I wish we could all live in peace. I wish that there was never going to be any more harm to each other. That we would have no more wars, no more oppression, no more dictatorships, no more, acts of crime against each other. I wish that we could find a way to live together in harmony. But unfortunately, that's not a reality either. The hope is that things get better where you decrease the level of crime and violence and war. But going back to my thoughts about what can be done to combat, school shootings or mass shootings in general, is what I've talked about in previous videos. The fact that there are people that I believe that are mentally unstable, that have issues, that need help, and most likely shouldn't be allowed to own firearms. Now, that's a slippery slope when it comes to the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution and Bill of Rights. The fact that in this country, citizens have a right to bear arms. And I wholeheartedly believe in that right. But at the same time, if a city or if a state wishes to pass laws that curtail that right, to limit it, to say, okay, well, in this city, you can't own an assault rifle, or you can't own this or that, then, in my opinion, that's under the 10th Amendment. That's the right of, self-government, of, state and local governments to make up their own laws. So if the people of the city of Chicago vote to outright ban guns, then that's their right. And if the people in other states vote to, say, look, we're going to limit what is legal when it comes to a magazine. You can only have like a certain amount of rounds in a magazine for an assault rifle, or we're just going to do away with assault rifles in the state altogether, or we're going to increase background checks, or we're going to up the age limit to, say, 21, then in my opinion, that's the prerogative of state and local governments. But overall, throughout all 50 states of the United States, we should have the right to defend ourselves and protect ourselves, and the right to bear arms. And for the record, all my guns that I've purchased over the past few years have been at an actual gun store, and I had to show ID, legitimate legal ID, my driver's license, plus I had to go through a background check. I had to fill out a form. They had to make a phone call, and they had to make sure that I wasn't a criminal, that I didn't have any outstanding warrants or any issues before they approved selling me a firearm. And that happened every single time I've bought a gun over the past few years. And I don't have a problem with background checks. I absolutely don't. Now, unfortunately, the reality is, if somebody wants a gun, there are definitely a lot of quote-unquote shady, illegal, black market routes they can take in order to acquire a weapon. But, you look at the drug war in my country, okay? Drug prohibition has not stopped people from getting drugs, whether it's marijuana or harder stuff. Now, in some states, marijuana has become legalized. And I think that's a good thing, because, that's a self-determination type thing. It's a personal right. I think people should have a right to smoke marijuana, just like my dad advocated on his channel when he was still alive. He was a big-time, pro-legalization advocate when it came to cannabis, marijuana, whatever you wish to call it. But back on topic, it just proves that by trying to make something illegal, whether it was alcohol during the alcohol prohibition back in the 20s and 30s, or drug prohibition, aka the war on drugs, or even, say, a war on guns, where you magically get enough people in Congress and a president to say, you know what, we're going to write a new amendment, and it's going to officially make it illegal to own firearms in the United States. Because that's the only real legal way you can go about doing it, is by amending the Constitution and Bill of Rights. And that's how you do it. You do it any other way, it technically goes against the founding documents of our republic. So hypothetically, you get a Congress with enough people that are, pro gun control, that want to end people's right, or at least let's just be more reasonable. Let's not go so extreme, because I think that's a part of the problem. You have extremists on both sides. Let's just say that there are people that say, you know what, okay, citizens, the average citizen has a right to own firearms, with a few exceptions. In either case, I feel like that would still have to be like an amendment issue, where they'd have to vote on an amendment. They'd have to, I think it's like a majority vote, like 2/3 majority. It'd have to pass both chambers, House and Senate, and then it would have to be signed by the president, and then it'd have to be approved by a majority of states in order for the amendment to pass. I think that's how it works, if my government knowledge is still there. I know I have some government, know-how in my noggin. A few brain cells remain with political and government knowledge. They persist. They won't go away. But so let's just say that happens. Okay, then anyone that let's just say they make assault rifles illegal. Okay, fine. Assault rifles are legal. Everyday law-abiding citizens have to hand over their assault rifles. And hopefully at least the government will have some sort of buyback program, so that at least the law-abiding citizens will get a few dollars out of that. In the extremist case, they make all guns illegal. And by the way, I don't think this is ever going to happen in my country. I don't think it's going to happen. But we're just playing hypotheticals here. Even if you simply make assault weapons illegal, yes, the average citizen who wants to be law-abiding and doesn't want to get in trouble with the government, they'll hand over their assault rifles. However, criminals will not, because they're criminals and they don't care about the law. They'll break the law every chance they get. So if we go to like an extreme where one day somewhere down the road it's decided that we're going to write a new amendment where citizens no longer can have guns, period, and all the citizens hand over their guns. Well, all the citizens that are still quote-unquote law-abiding citizens, they hand over their guns because they don't want to get in trouble by the government. Well, then there's citizens that will refuse to hand over their guns, and then they're deemed criminals now. So overnight, they go from being law-abiding citizens that only wanted a gun or guns in order to protect and defend themselves and their family and loved ones to criminals. And at the same time, as I pointed out already, the criminals that already existed previous to this, gun purge amendment, they're going to still have firearms because they're criminals and they most likely got their guns illegal to begin with. So in the end, it doesn't really help the gun owner per se, the law-abiding citizen that simply wants to defend himself or herself. It doesn't help him at all. So that's one reason why I believe that, going out with an outright ban on guns is not the solution, because you're only taking guns away from people that can defend themselves. And there have been numerous cases where, like, somebody with a concealed carry gun, whether it was like an off-duty cop or just a common citizen, a Joe or Jane, actually prevented mass shootings. There's been several incidences. I mean, I know they don't. Unfortunately, the news doesn't exactly cover those stories as much as they do the mass shootings do. But there have been numerous cases over the past few years where a would-be mass shooter was gunned down before they could kill more people because somebody happened to be carrying a concealed carry, which means they had a firearm, which they had a license to conceal. Like, mostly it's a pistol or a revolver that they're allowed to conceal carry. And, so in other words, while guns can inflict great harm against innocent people, guns have also been used to save people's lives. So in the end, the gun itself is not necessarily evil. It's not the one that's responsible for carrying out the acts of mass murder or even the murder of one individual. Neither is a knife or a sword or a bomb. It's people that are responsible for the crimes that are committed. The gun, the sword, a hammer, a baseball bat, weapons, anything that can be used to murder somebody else is simply a tool. Now, granted, as I pointed out, it's a lot easier to kill more people with a gun, especially like an automatic gun like an assault rifle, than it is with, say, a knife. But at the same time, murder is murder. And the best thing to do is to come up with ways to protect people, whether it's, hiring more law enforcement, having at least one police officer on duty at school, somebody not like that deputy that was at the school that, for whatever rhyme or reason, decided they weren't going to go in there to protect the kids they were supposed to protect and the teachers, when shots were being fired. I'm talking about police officers that may have had some experience in war, because a lot of police officers served in Iraq or Afghanistan. And so they have battle experience. They went through basic training. They know how to use firearms in a war zone. And maybe you need a police officer like that at schools. And, if the students and if the teachers know that this officer is, a veteran, who obviously has been cleared and screened properly to make sure that they're not going to, snap and, cause any issues, that they're actually there to protect the kids and the teachers, from potential harm from a would-be mass shooter, that police officer alone could serve as a deterrent. Because, this, kid who has issues that wants to be the next mass shooter, finds out that, oh, well, one of the issues I'm going to have is the fact that this cop who's stationed at the school, he or her is a vet and has served at least one tour of duty and has been in a combat situation. Therefore, if the need arises, they have that experience, that knowledge to fall back on when it comes to dealing with a mass shooter. They're not afraid to go into a potential war zone and deal with a threat like a mass shooter. So that's one possibility. I don't know how I feel about, arming teachers or staff at schools. I mean, I don't like the idea of like making that mandatory, because there's a lot of teachers that don't have a firearm. They don't want a gun in their life, and I don't blame them. I believe that anybody out there that doesn't want a firearm or wants anything to do with firearms, that's your right. That's your prerogative. If you don't want to ever have a gun or touch a gun, then that's fine. You should never be forced to own a firearm in this country. Now, on the flip side, if there are, teachers and like coaches or faculty, like a principal, assistant principal, that would very much like to have a concealed carry, that has the proper training and, once again, mental capacity and screening in order to have a said firearm, then I'm not necessarily against that either. It's an individual to individual basis. The problem is you never know. I mean, if a student, like some bad apple, decides, hey, I want to get this teacher's gun or this principal's gun, and they know that this teacher or principal actually has a gun, and the principal or the teacher is careless and they happen to leave the gun in, say, their desk one day, and the student just happens to take the gun. Now, the student may not be looking to carry out mass shooting. They may just be looking to sell it, to like a gang member or bikers or whoever might be interested in illegally purchasing a firearm. There is, unfortunately, a market out there for that. So that's my concern, is that, if you're going to have individuals that work in the school armed, then they need to be willing volunteers. They need to have the proper, knowledge and training when it comes to using a firearm, which means, not just concealed carry class, but they probably need some proper training from local law enforcement. And there has to be a degree of anonymity, what I'm saying. I'm stuttered all over that word, butchered it. Anonymous. They have to be anonymous. In other words, hardly anybody should know that this coach or this teacher or that assistant principal is packing. In that regard, then, it also is another deterrent towards a potential mass shooter. That way they know that, there's a very real possibility that there may be, one or multiple teachers or staff members in that school, along with a seasoned veteran that's a police officer stationed at the school, that are ready and willing to defend the two teachers and the students of that school at all costs. So yeah, it's it's a very controversial topic, and unfortunately, it's sad that you don't have different people coming together on both sides, from like the pro-gun group and the anti-gun group, trying to meet in the middle in order to come up with solutions to the problems that we face regarding this issue. But unfortunately, this is, par for the course in my country. This is a big reason why I'm tired of politics, is because this shit happens all the time. A problem arises, and, the extreme right, the extreme left, they're the ones that seem to have control over the conversation, and they're the ones always saying, well, we're not going to budge where we stand. And then the other side's like, well, we're not going to budge where we stand. And I think that's what we need. We need to find a way to meet in the middle for a lot of issues, not only in our country, but throughout the world as well.